Chapter 71 Head-on Confrontation, Part 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The clanging of metal on gears and the grinding of the torsion bar echoed in the cramped combat compartment. Whitman, glued to the periscope, scanned the village where gunfire had erupted nearby. Soon, new orders crackled in from Lieutenant Heisenauer. Sergeant Michel, get your assault gun platoon moving, now. The Soviets ambushed our infantry in the village. They need serious fire support. Let's go. Whitman had already told the driver to get the engine revved in first gear, ready to move. He wasn't surprised by Heisenauer's order. He keyed his throat mic. Order confirmed, Lieutenant. Assault gun platoon is on the move. We're right behind you. Over. He dropped his hand from his throat and clapped Clink, the gunner, on the shoulder. This was the moment Whitman had been waiting for. He spoke loudly. Keep your eyes peeled, Clink. I've got a feeling that Ivan's got a T-34 in that village, and he's worth taking down. It's my mission to bag him, the German armor roared, spewing black exhaust as they rumbled forward. Finally, with the tanks leading the way and the assault guns bringing up the rear, they reached the village entrance, linked up with their infantry, and prepared for battle. Hidden behind a row of wooden community hall, Malyshenko, observing from his command post, tossed away his nearly finished cigarette. Kirill, load AP rounds. Seriosha's vehicle is ready to maneuver. Time to teach these tin cans a lesson in the facts of life. That even before Malyshenko finished speaking, Lieutenant Dyakov, the acting battalion commander, barked orders at the anti-tank gun crew. He had moved from the heavy machine gun position to the anti-tank gun. Makayev, your time to shine. Captain Malyshenko wants us to prioritize those smaller German anti-infantry tanks. He says they're the biggest threat. Yeah, that's right, the little guy up front. Aim for him, quick. Through his telescope, Dyakov could see the lead German Panzer II tank. It matched Malyshenko's description. Armed with a 20mm machine gun and a coaxial 92mm machine gun, this anti-infantry tank was moving ahead of the German infantry, spitting out a hail of fire. The Panzer II's hull and turret were protected by 30mm to 45mm of homogeneous steel armor. While it wouldn't hold up against most Soviet anti-tank guns, it was still a legitimate German tank. Taking it out from the front with infantry's small arms wasn't going to happen. Even the Deshka heavy machine gun, firing armor-piercing incendiary rounds, couldn't penetrate its 25mm of armor at 500 meters. The German Panzer II, at full throttle, rushed to the front and unleashed a storm of fire as soon as it was near the German infantry. The tracer rounds from the KWK-38 20mm cannon swept away any visible Soviet firing positions. These Panzer IIs, assigned to the elite SS Guardsmen Division, were equipped with high-end 20mm Type 40 tungsten core armor-piercing rounds. With a muzzle velocity of 1,050 meters per second, these rounds could punch through 60 centimeters of vertical homogeneous steel armor at 100 meters. In the close-quarters fighting between the Soviets and Germans, that was practically point-blank, bullets ripped through the air, and splintered wood exploded. The Soviet infantry, hidden behind wooden buildings that might stop rifle or submachine gun bullets, never expected a German Panzer II to appear out of nowhere. The 20mm Type 40 tungsten core rounds tore through the wooden shacks. Soviet infantry, using the huts as cover, screamed as they were shredded or torn apart. Splintered wood peppered the Soviet soldiers' bodies. The angry Deshka heavy machine gun that had been pouring fire on the German infantry was wiped out when the lead tank flattened the entire structure. The victory, firmly in Soviet hands just moments before, now started to slip away. Facing this mobile pillbox, Lieutenant Dyakov quickly identified it as the Panzer II, based on Malyshenko's briefing. He'd seen firsthand the destruction this anti-infantry tank could cause. One of the two anti-tank guns had been positioned earlier per Malyshenko's orders when the village was fortified. Lieutenant Dyakov, from an inconspicuous hut on the left side of the village's main road, ordered the gun to fire. The crew prepped the old-fashioned 1902 30-76mm anti-tank gun, a relic of the Tsarist army from World War I. How could the Panzer II, with only 15 mm of side armor, withstand such a hit. The 76mm anti-tank gun was outdated, but at 500 meters it could still penetrate 70mm of vertical armor. The Panzer II didn't stand a chance. Boom. The 76mm round struck the side of the Panzer II. The warhead detonated inside. The explosion from 150 grams of TNT ignited the 20mm cannon shell stored inside the tank. The 20mm rounds, engulfed in flames, sprayed out in all directions. Unsuspecting German infantry were cut down. The tide of battle swung once again. Chapter 72 Head-on Confrontation, Part 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The massive explosion and the thunder of shrapnel sent Heisenauer's rage skyrocketing. Facing the Soviet anti-tank gun that dared to provoke him, Heisenauer, almost beyond reason with anger, barked out an order through his throat mic. Enemy anti-tank gun at 11 o'clock. Walker, Williams, you're closest. Take it out. The hurried order snapped the two lead Panzer III tanks into action, turrets swinging toward the target. Walker and Williams were cranking those turrets as fast as they could, but the slow manual system made the tanks react like they had a bad case of whiplash. Holding his breath, Mara locked the 200-meter range marker on the lead Panzer III's upper armor. It was like his soul had merged with the gun. With a soft grunt, Shinka slammed his foot down on the firing pedal, the firing pin slammed into the shell's primer, and the armor-piercing round shot down the barrel. The BR-350B's fuse needed 15mm of homogeneous steel to trigger, and the glass and wood it went through first weren't enough. The shell tore through the wooden houses and glass, finally slamming into the Panzer III's upper armor and punching straight through, detonating the 50mm ammo inside. The tank blew its turret sky high in a fiery explosion. The German advance was once again hammered by hidden guns from all directions. Damn it! That Ivan's in AT-34. Lucas, take a platoon and deal with him. I'll handle the infantry and anti-tank guns. Move it. Yes, Lieutenant. Heisenauer's order sent 4 Panzer III tanks peeling off from the center of the column, charging straight toward Malyshenko's position on the right. They looked almost like tigers, the heavy tanks that would show up a year later. Gripping the commander's wide-angle sight, he watched the 4 Panzer III's rumble towards him. Malyshenko, already expecting this, grinned. Too bad you're just kittens right now. You'll never be tigers. Seryoza, back up in first gear. Kirill, keep loading armor-piercing. Let's go. As Malyshenko's No. 177 Command T-34 started backing behind the shelter of the buildings, the German tanks charged ahead blind. They only knew the direction and location of the shot. Tracks grinding, they bulldozed through the fences of the Soviet village, smashing the flimsy wooden houses. They crushed the villagers' livelihoods under their treads. The German tanks slowed, searching for their target. But the cluttered village and poor visibility made it hard for the experienced SS tankers to find anything. Damn it! These Soviet houses and barns are everywhere. I can't even see the T-34, Lucas. Listen for the engine, try to pinpoint the Ivan's location by the sound. Are you crazy, Lucas? There's so much machine gun and rifle fire, it's like a jackhammer in my ears. You want me to listen for the engine? I can't even hear our own engine. That while the German crew argued about their next move, the T-34-76, powered by a 500 horsepower diesel and weighing only 28 tons, used its superior maneuverability to circle the village. Malyshenko, familiar with the terrain, had gotten around the Germans before they even knew he was there, lining up a shot at their flank. Seeing the 4 Panzer III's still clueless and scanning for him, Malyshenko smiled. His plan was working perfectly. Harvest time, time to go home, Hans. Click, boom. The firing pedal clicked and the gun roared. The BR-350B blew a huge hole in the 1st Panzer III's thin side armor. The shell detonated the dozens of 50mm rounds stored inside the Panzer III's hull. The explosion at point-blank range rattled the other German tankers, leaving them deafened and seeing stars, and at that crucial moment, Kirill, who was getting better every shot, had reloaded with lightning speed. Armor-piercing loaded. Two down, time to run, Hans. Boom. Another muzzle flash, another shot. In the hands of a skilled crew, the T-34 could fire and reload in just 6 to 8 seconds, giving it a decisive edge when every second counted. Before the German crews could even react, Malyshenko followed up. As the 2nd Panzer III went up in flames just 9 seconds after the first, the remaining two finally realized the T-34 had flanked them. The SS tankers, never lacking courage, immediately began spinning their tanks, trying to bring their frontal armor to bear on the enemy. Chapter 73 Head-on Confrontation, Part 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Trying to swing that tank around now, Hans? Too late for that. Turns out, the Panzer III, with its simple transmission, the kind where one track stops and the other keeps going to turn, just couldn't handle the speed in close-quarters combat with the faster Soviet T-34. That outdated system couldn't get the Panzer III turned around to face the enemy before it got blown to smithereens. Kirill, yelling that he was reloading, stomped the firing pedal again. The final Panzer III was only halfway turned when that shot signaled the end for those Germans. A BR-350B armor-piercing shell ripped through the tank, ending it all. Seeing the burning German tanks through his scope, Malyshenko took a breath and, without pausing to regroup, ordered his driver to flank the enemy. Meanwhile, on the other side of the village, Lieutenant Heisenauer was leading what was left of the German forces in a counterattack. 11 o'clock, 180 meters, Soviet machine gun nest. He rounds ready. Loaded. Fire, boom. The assault gun roared, spitting flames. A 75mm high-explosive shell, perfect for taking out soft targets, shot out and slammed into the wooden house. The Soviet DP-28 light machine gun, which had been firing from the window and pinning down the German infantry, never stood a chance. The 680 grams of TNT in that German shell obliterated the entire house. The machine gun nest that had been causing so much trouble was gone, thanks to the direct hit from the assault gun. Watching through his periscope, Whitman grinned, pleased to see the Soviet position wiped out. He reached forward and clapped his gunner, Klink, on the shoulder. Nice shot, Klink. Keep it up, and we'll be getting medals in no time. I'd rather get some sleep than a medal. You gotta put in a word with the battalion commander for me, Michael. Whitman was about to reply when Lieutenant Heisenauer, who had gathered the main force of the SS in the village, issued further orders. All crews and units, form up and continue sweeping through the village. Armor leads the way, infantry provides cover. Sergeant Michel, your assault gun platoon stays behind and provides fire support on my command. Hearing Heisenauer's orders in his headset, Whitman adjusted his throat mic. Copy that, Lieutenant Heisenauer. Moving out. The regrouped German force, having eliminated some of the Soviet infantry in the front, prepared to push deeper into the village. Unbeknownst to them, behind a haystack less than 100 meters away, a T-34 sat waiting. All right, comrades, the Germans are close enough. Lieutenant Malyshenko wants us to fire the first shot. Get ready. The Soviet commander giving the orders was none other than Lieutenant Iashkin, the guy who'd asked Malyshenko around the campfire the night before if he ever got scared. According to Malyshenko's plan, the Soviet army, with the advantage of the village's terrain, wouldn't confront the Germans head-on at the entrance. Instead, the first wave of Soviet troops would take some losses, then feign a retreat into the village, drawing the Germans in. This would put the German force in a bad spot, exposed and in unfamiliar territory. The complex layout of the village would be perfect for a second ambush, inflicting even more damage on the enemy. Iashkin's T-34 was crucial to Malyshenko's plan. Malyshenko had personally instructed Iashkin to take out as many German armored vehicles as possible with that first shot. Now that the battle had reached the heart of the village, the German offensive was relying almost entirely on its armored vehicles to break through. Without those tanks, the remaining SS infantry would be sitting ducks, caught in a crossfire or forced to surrender. There was no way they could pull back like they could have at the village entrance. Iashkin, with a bit of combat experience under his belt, aimed his main gun at the lead Panzer III. He was ready to do what was necessary. Without hesitation, he stomped on the firing pedal. the gun roared, and the shell screamed through the air. The BR-350B armor-piercing shell, fired by Aishkin from behind the haystack, slammed into the lead German tank. The shot deflected the tank slightly, and instead of penetrating the fighting compartment, it struck the engine stalled immediately, and the gasoline ignited, creating an inferno in the engine compartment. Feeling the intense heat, the 5-man crew of the Panzer III scrambled out of the tank, led by their commander, all shouting at once. Chapter 74 Closing the Net. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The lead car in the front row was taken out in a surprise attack. Before he could react, Heisenauer, frantic and furious, barked out the order again, and a second armor-piercing shell followed immediately. Another hit, boom, this time, Aishkin, having swung his muzzle around, targeted the side of a No. 3 assault gun at the tail end of the German formation. The turretless tank, heavier and slower to turn than a Panzer III, had no chance to dodge in the few seconds it had. Aishkin's BR-350B armor-piercing round sliced through the thin side armor of the No. 3 assault gun like a hot knife through butter. The resulting explosion ripped the stuck 37 75mm howitzer, standard on the Type 3A assault gun, right out of the fighting compartment and tossed it to the side. The burning, twisted wreckage of the No. 3 assault gun became a dark, hot coffin, roasting the remains of the 3 German soldiers inside and filling the air with a nauseating stench. After a textbook ambush, Second Lieutenant Aishkin, hidden in a haystack, had completed Malashenko's mission. All right, comrades. Mission accomplished. Back it up, avoid those Jerrys, and get to the rally point. Move it. Roger that, Comrade Commander. From his command cupola, Heisenauer watched the Soviet T-34 reversing out of its hidden position, belching black smoke. He gritted his teeth, wanting to tear those Soviet tanks to pieces. Armored Company, pivot. Cars 112 and 113, flank that Soviet tank and cut it off. Don't let it get away. The rest of you, suppress it with fire. Sergeant Michel, get artillery support ASAP. Hold that T-34, now. Even before Whitman, who had just lost one of his No. 3 assault guns, could respond, his gunner, Klink, griped loudly without bothering to use his throat mic. Heisenauer, that little moron. He's driving us like a herd of cattle, and the Soviets are picking us off. Are you really going to listen to this idiot's orders, Michel? Whitman, ignoring Klink's outburst, did what he had to do and answered Heisenauer. Confirmed. We're on it, Lieutenant. Koldenhoff, turn the hull. Face the T-34 head-on, and prepare for battle. Then, turning his attention to Klink, he finished his thought. Whitman wasn't pleased with Klink's insubordination. Lieutenant Heisenauer has his reasons, Klink. We all know what we do when we get an order. Do I need to remind you, Klink? TCH, he's still an idiot. Muttering curses under his breath, Klink, unimpressed with Heisenauer's command, followed Whitman's orders and lined up the T-34 in his sights. As the German army snapped to attention, they swiveled their guns toward the retreating T-34. A storm of armor-piercing rounds began to rain down around Aishkin's vehicle, stirring up clouds of dust. Round after round slammed into the T-34's hull and turret. Just then, another T-34, with the white digits 177 painted on its turret, roared out from behind a wooden building on the other side of the German column, the 500-horsepower diesel engine screaming. Malashin, peering through his gun sight, saw the exposed rear ends of the German tanks only yards away. A grin spread across his face, and he stomped on the firing pedal. Boom, the 76mm armor-piercing shell went through the rear of a Panzer III like it was nothing. The shell penetrated deep into the engine compartment. The TNT charge detonated, igniting the gasoline fumes and fuel tank. The Panzer III's engine compartment exploded in a ball of fire. The engine itself was blown to pieces. Shaking his head to clear the ringing in his ears, Heisenauer, still reeling from the friendly fire, could barely hear his gunner, Wolf, shouting over the din. Heisenauer, we're surrounded. It's not just one T-34. There are 4 of them. 4. We're caught in a crossfire. You have to do something. Heisenauer, straining to hear Wolf over the din, confirmed that his vision was clear. He raised his head and peered through his command cupola. The scene was like something out of a nightmare. Damn it! Those Ivans tricked us. How could they hide so many T-34s in the village? It's impossible. Chapter 75 The Final Showdown. You are listening at novelfull.audio. That's exactly what Malyshenko had planned for when he set up the combat plan. The German mechanized column, now completely inside the village, was struggling to maneuver due to the tight space. After running into a well-laid ambush, the German tanks and half-tracks trying to retreat were blocked by the wreckage of their own vehicles. The German infantry, originally there to protect the tanks from infantry attacks, were pinned down by heavy fire. Lieutenant Heisenauer's mixed force was now caught between a rock and a hard place, just as Malyshenko's vehicle, number 177, emerged from the bunker. Two Soviet T-34 tanks roared into the village from their hidden positions on either side of the road. The German army, already in chaos, was surrounded by 4 T-34s and instantly lost the upper hand. Faced with this desperate situation, Heisenauer, a guy who didn't believe in surrender, had to make a decision. All vehicle crews and units, use the buildings on either side of the road for cover. Infantry, secure the courtyards and set up machine guns. Armored companies and assault guns, focus fire on the Soviet T-34 tanks. Now, before Heisenauer could finish, Whitman's voice cut through on the radio. Lieutenant Heisenauer, with all due respect, I suggest we find a way to clear a path for retreat for tactical reasons. The young and ambitious Heisenauer bristled at the advice from Whitman, an assault gun platoon sergeant. He thought of the destruction facing his entire army if they continued to fight. Gritting his teeth, Heisenauer swallowed his pride and decided to focus on the bigger picture. All right, Sergeant Michel, we'll do it your way. Order your assault gun platoon to immediately clear the wreckage of the destroyed assault gun to make way, but I will personally give the order to retreat. Got it. Relieved that the hot-headed Lieutenant Heisenauer wasn't completely crazy, Whitman, who already knew how this battle would end, responded immediately. Understood, Lieutenant. We're on it. As soon as Whitman received Heisenauer's order, he turned his vehicle around and ordered the driver to floor it towards the wreckage of the No. 3 assault gun blocking their path. The 300 horsepower Maybach gasoline engine strained, pushing the 19-ton assault gun, creating a horrifying sound of metal scraping against metal. Through the driver's observation window, Koldenhoff watched as the burning remains of the destroyed assault gun slowly moved under the violent impact of his own vehicle. He thought of the cruel fact that the corpses of his comrades were still burning inside. Koldenhoff, who was driving, felt sick. Michel, how did it come to this? Merritt, Hagen, Chris Bowman, and Fisher, all four are gone, and now I have to desecrate their bodies with my own hands. What the hell is going on? Hearing Koldenhoff's choked voice, Whitman, who was close to the four men in the destroyed vehicle, sighed and tried to comfort him. Koldenhoff, you know what you have to do. I trust your judgment. Remember the dead, and fight for the living. Do what you have to do. Of course, I know what I have to do. Eyes wide and bloodshot, he pushed the control stick, and the No. 3 assault gun finally pushed the burning wreckage aside. Before Whitman could finish clearing the road, the sound of explosions echoed from the front of the German column. Lieutenant Heisenauer, we can't penetrate these Soviet tanks. Their T-34s have too much armor. Lieutenant, we can't get around them. The Soviet T-34 is blocking the road. They're faster and more maneuverable than us. Oh, damn, he's got his gun pointed at me. Basher, shoot. Boom. A deafening explosion echoed in Heisenauer's ears, along with the unfinished words of the Panzer III tank commander. Heisenauer felt a mix of panic, anger, and desperation. He had reached his breaking point. A bunch of losers and trash. I don't believe these damn Ivans are invincible. Cursing under his breath, he ripped off his black leather gloves and threw them down. Enraged, Heisenauer decided to take matters into his own hands. He slapped the gunner, Wolf, on the shoulder. Get out of the way, Wolf. "I'll take care of these Ivans." The expressionless gunner, Wolf, already numb, didn't say a word but vacated his position. The furious Heisenauer returned to the gunner's seat, which he hadn't occupied in a long time, and began adjusting the turret and gun elevation, determined to turn the muzzle towards the target in one swift move. Through the gun sight, he saw the No. 3 tank in the center of the German armored column slowly turning its turret to face his vehicle. Second Lieutenant Iushkin, confident in the defensive capabilities of his T-34, wasn't about to let the Germans get a shot off without returning fire. Matching Heisenauer's speed, he began to swing the turret of his T-34 towards Heisenauer's vehicle. Heisenauer, possessing all the necessary skills of a qualified armored commander, edged out Iushkin in the turret-turning competition. With a final, decisive movement, he locked the 50mm gun of the No. 3 tank in his sights. Chapter 76 Life and Death Exchange. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Looking through his gun sight at the Soviet T-34, which was still struggling to turn its turret, Heisenauer felt a surge of superiority and a sinister smile crept across his face. "Farewell, Ivan." Click, the trigger on the main gun's control wheel clicked softly. The Type 40 50mm tungsten core armor-piercing round, already chambered, was propelled forward by the burning propellant. It shot out of the barrel at a blistering 1,050 meters per second, hurtling toward its target. Heisenauer was a highly skilled gunner, rising through the ranks to become a lieutenant and company commander. Even after his promotion, his expertise remained unmatched within the armored companies. Knowing the T-34 used sloped armor to enhance its effective thickness, Heisenauer avoided aiming for the upper hull. Instead, he targeted what he believed was the weakest point, the turret cheeks. The T-34's turret cheeks, unprotected by the gun shield, had only 45mm of semi-curved armor. This was theoretically insufficient to withstand the Type 40 tungsten core round fired by the Type 3J tank, which could penetrate 90mm of homogeneous steel at 500 meters. With practiced precision, Heisenauer's round struck the T-34's right turret cheek. The tungsten core projectile ripped through the armor, detonating inside in a storm of fire, shrapnel, and metal fragments. The projectile continued its path, instantly killing Iushkin's loader with a headshot. The fragments ricocheted around the confined turret, creating a deadly secondary effect. The driver and machine gunner in the hull were struck in the head and back by the debris. They died instantly. The breech of the F-34 main gun separated, and Iushkin, spared from immediate death, was impaled in the thigh and right arm by hot fragments, causing him to pass out. The Iushkin T-34, combat-ready moments before, was now a burning wreck, a ghost car with a dead or incapacitated crew. Through his gun sight, Malyshenko witnessed the destruction of Iushkin's tank. His heart sank, and anger surged through him. "Damn German, you want to die? I'll make it happen." He furiously cranked the turret controls, swinging the main gun away from a German 251 half-track laying down machine gun fire. Driven by the need for revenge, Malyshenko quickly lined up Heisenauer's tank in his sights. "Go to hell, fascist." Click, boom. The T-34's gun roared, engulfing the space between the two tanks in fire and smoke. The BR-350B shell, with its immense kinetic energy, traversed the short distance and slammed into Heisenauer's side armor. The shell penetrated the weak point and detonated inside the tank's chassis. Blazing flames and fragments filled the confined space. Whether it was luck or a flaw in Malyshenko's hasty shot, the shell didn't hit the ammunition storage directly. Heisenauer, dazed and bleeding, remained conscious. He looked at his blood-soaked hands, feeling intense pain in his lower body. He realized he wasn't dead, but he lacked the strength to escape. Through his scope, Malyshenko saw the German Panzer III erupt in thick black smoke. There was no explosion, no movement, and no sign of the crew escaping. Confident in his kill, Malyshenko started to swing the gun towards his next target when Nikolai's voice interrupted him. "Comrade Commander, Comrade Petrov needs to speak with you. It's an emergency." "What? Commissar Petrov?" Malyshenko was stunned. He never expected Petrov to contact him during the heat of battle. Reluctantly, he leaned down from the commander's seat and reached for Nikolai's outstretched arm. "Give me the communicator, quickly." "Hello, Commissar Petrov, this is Malyshenko. I'm engaging the enemy. What are your orders? That he took the device and reported to Petrov. The sound of gunfire and explosions could be clearly heard over the communication channel. Petrov, laying down the Tokarev TT-33 pistol, shouted into the communicator. Chapter 77 The Same Decision. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Captain Malyshenko, this is critical. The 131st Motorized Rifle Division on our flank has been shredded by the German offensive. The acting division commander and the political commissar have died serving their country. Rokossovsky ordered us to pull back and prepare to retreat immediately. Intel shows the German army punched through the 131 Estes line and is flanking our 9th Mechanized Army. Looks like they're trying that old trick again, surround and devour. He paused, and Commissar Petrov, who'd been up front shooting deserters to shore up morale, looked exhausted. One more thing, Malyshenko. We've identified the enemy from yesterday and today as the elite 1st SS Panzer Division Leibstandard SS Adolf Hitler. These fanatics are on a whole different level than the regular Wehrmacht. Our front line is already buckling under their constant pressure, and the Luftwaffe's bombing us to hell. If things don't change, our division won't hold much longer. Malyshenko, you could be cut off and wiped out in that village any minute. So, I'm ordering you to prepare an immediate withdrawal and consider our next strategic move. Oh, almost forgot, how's it going on your end? Can you break contact with the Germans? Malyshenko, communicator in hand, hesitated, considering the overall situation. Finally, he answered. Comrade Commissar, our defense is holding strong. We're about to trap and eliminate the Germans in the village, an armored infantry battalion, roughly. But given the bigger picture, I'll have to leave those Jerrys for now. Petrov was caught off guard by Malyshenko's report. He'd assumed Malyshenko was locked in a desperate fight against a superior force, never expecting the newly promoted captain to be gaining ground despite everything. Excitement mixed with admiration. Petrov's estimation of Malyshenko's military acumen jumped a few notches. He was impressed by Malyshenko's ability to stay focused and see the big picture. Smiling, Commissar Petrov spoke again. Your judgment is spot on, Comrade Malyshenko. Let those Germans enjoy their temporary victory. The Red Army will reclaim everything that's rightfully ours soon enough. Good luck, comrade. After the brief exchange, Malyshenko tossed the communicator back to Nikolai. Realizing the gravity of the situation, he made a quick decision. Seryoza, let's move. Target is Comrade Ishkin's vehicle. We've got one more important thing to do before pulling out. Yes, Comrade Commander. Malyshenko directed his T-34/76 tank, number 177, through the burning wreckage of German tanks toward Ishkin's disabled vehicle. Meanwhile, on the other side of the field, the German troops, leaderless after Lieutenant Heisenauer's demise, were in disarray. Michel. Heisenauer's tank got blown to hell by Ivan. We've lost our commander. What do we do now? With Klink's shout ringing in his ears, Whitman, speaking into his throat mic, made a decision without hesitation. All right, someone needs to take charge, and that's me. Attention all units, this is Sergeant Michel Whitman, platoon leader of the assault gun platoon. I don't know if anyone outranks me, but as things stand, we need to prepare for a temporary retreat. If there are no objections, take cover and prepare to pull back from the village along our original route. Perhaps Whitman was indeed the highest-ranking officer remaining, or perhaps everyone recognized the wisdom of his suggestion. Either way, no one objected. The surviving SS tanks and infantry, now under Whitman's de facto command, began an orderly withdrawal, providing cover for each other. These hardened Guards Division troops were not only fearless attackers but also displayed remarkable tactical skill in retreat, everything you'd expect from an elite unit. At the same time, the Soviet infantry, obeying Malyshenko's earlier order don't pursue the enemy, simply peppered the retreating Germans with a parting volley of machine gun fire, content to let them go. The heavy casualties had forced the initially superior German force to retreat, but they also meant the already understrength Soviets couldn't afford to squander men in a pursuit. after giving the order to retreat, Whitman grabbed the MP-40 submachine gun next to his seat, racking the bolt, startling clink. "Damn, Michel. What are you doing? Going out there?" Holding the MP-40, Whitman pushed open the commander's hatch. He had a plan. Maybe Heisenauer is still alive. "I need to check." "You coming?" Whitman's words hung in the air. After a stunned silence, the other crew members reluctantly grabbed their weapons and followed him out of the tank, as Whitman and his four-man crew cautiously approached Heisenauer's wrecked Panzer III. Malyshenko, having driven his T-34 tank next to Aishkin's vehicle, was giving orders to his own crew. "Seriosha, keep the engine running. Nikolai, machine gun cover. Kirill, let's see if anyone from Aishkin's crew survived." Chapter 78 Looking at Each Other. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Squeak, the turret roof screeched as he forced it open, and a ray of sunlight streamed into the tank. Malyshenko, glancing around, froze. His gaze landed on the blood-soaked seat where Aishkin lay, barely conscious. "Thought you guys had forgotten about me, Captain," Aishkin mumbled. "Damn it, Aishkin, what are you talking about, you idiot? Hold on, I'm getting you out of there." Relief washed over Malyshenko as he heard Aishkin's weak but clear voice. He scrambled into the cramped turret, barely big enough for two. "Hang in there, Aishkin. Kirill. Grab him, I'll lift him up." The sunlight revealed the extent of Aishkin's injuries. Shrapnel wounds riddled his right arm and thigh. Ignoring the blood, Malyshenko carefully lifted the wounded lieutenant and passed him up to Kirill, who was waiting on the turret. Together, they pulled the immobile Aishkin from the tank. Kirill held him steady. Malyshenko turned back to check on the other crew members. A headless corpse and two other dead soldiers made it clear no help was needed there. "Damn fascists." Realizing his comrades were dead, Malyshenko retrieved their identification tags. Unlike the U.S. military's metal dog tags, the Soviets used small slips of paper in wooden capsules due to the sheer number of soldiers and cost considerations. These contained a soldier's name, age, unit, and some personal info. These wooden capsules were fragile. Also, many poorly educated Soviet soldiers were superstitious and didn't want to put their information on the tags, believing it would hasten their death. Like sending the Grim Reaper an invitation. Malyshenko didn't know if the capsules contained the crew's information, but some things were worth doing regardless of the odds, just like risking his life to rescue Aishkin despite the possibility of being surrounded. He pocketed the capsules, grabbed his PPSH submachine gun, and climbed out of the turret to join Kirill, who was propping up the wounded Aishkin. As he prepared to jump down, a flash of movement caught his eye. "Commander, what's wrong?" Kirill, puzzled by Malyshenko's frozen state, looked in the same direction. He saw the wreckage of a German Panzer III tank less than 100 yards away. Several men were there, also trying to rescue a wounded comrade from the tank. An SS Panzer crew. Malyshenko's stare didn't go unnoticed. One of the Germans looked up. Along with the gunner, Klink, Heisenauer was helping Heisenauer, whose lower body was a bloody mess. Whitman, unable to jump off of the turret, stared across the short distance at Malyshenko. Heisenauer, also conscious, followed Whitman's gaze and saw Malyshenko and his crew. Enraged, the injured SS officer reached for the MP-40 submachine gun hanging around Whitman's neck, wanting to take a shot at the Soviet soldiers. Whitman, still thinking clearly, prevented Heisenauer from doing anything stupid. He grabbed the MP-40 himself. "Damn it, Sergeant Michel. I order you to shoot those Soviet bastards. That's an order. Do you understand?" Ignoring Heisenauer's ranting, Whitman calmly took command. "Lieutenant Heisenauer, given your injuries, you're in no condition to command. I'm taking over. Please cooperate and just try to stay comfortable." "You. Michel, you bastard. I'll report you when I get back. I'll report you for insubordination. Just wait, you." Kirill, confused by the argument unfolding on the enemy tank, asked Malyshenko, "Why are they arguing? And why aren't they attacking us? I don't get it." Malyshenko, having quickly assessed the situation, replied, "We have orders to retreat, so we're not going to start a fight. The Germans took heavy losses, too, and they don't want to provoke us until reinforcements arrive." That SS officer they're rescuing was obviously in charge. He's the type who wants to fight to the death. You could tell from the way they attacked earlier, a real hothead. But there's a smart guy in that crew who knows that not shooting first is the best play right now. What a clever son of a bitch. Chapter 79 Awakening. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On the wreckage of Command Vehicle No. 3 in Heisenauer, Klink, the gunner, sighed as he watched a group of motionless Soviet tankers across the way. "You see that, Michel? That's the crew of Ivan No. 177, the T-34. Remember how you were wondering what kind of hotshot was commanding that tank? Well, there he is." Whitman, who'd risen through the ranks from gunner himself, focused on the Soviet officer. He had a keen eye for detail and eyesight that'd make a pilot jealous, even at 100 yards. Whitman committed the commander's face to memory. "One day, we'll meet again on the battlefield. And when we do, I hope it's a fair fight. I'll be waiting." Malyshenko, as if sensing the SS soldier's scrutiny, smirked dismissively and muttered, "Some of those guys look like trouble. We'll save them for later." The brief, silent standoff ended as both sides, tending to their wounded, carefully climbed down from the wreckage and began to move out. The roar of gasoline and diesel engines filled the air as the two armored commanders, meeting for the first time, began their separate ways, unaware of the bond they would forge over the next 5 years of war. The Battle of Lutsk Brody, launched by the Soviet Southwestern Front against the invading German Army Group South, ended in defeat after the Soviet offensive ran out of steam. General Kleist's German 1st Panzer Group overwhelmed the Soviets. In that battle, the Soviets committed 5 mechanized corps, over 2,000 tanks, and thousands of artillery pieces. Despite deploying elite troops under renowned commanders like Rokossovsky, they were routed in less than a week by the German Combined Arms Blitzkrieg. The Germans' efficient air-ground coordination demonstrated the devastating power of modern warfare to the Soviets. The Air Force, a sideshow in World War I, had become a decisive factor. Having lost almost all air superiority in the early stages of Barbarossa, the Soviets learned the hard way what it meant to fight under constant enemy air attack. This relentless bombing solidified the resolve of Soviet commanders, from Rokossovsky to Zhukov, and even Stalin himself, to build a powerful air force. This army-level defeat, where local Soviet superiority was crushed by the Luftwaffe, was a wake-up call for Stalin. Recognizing the Air Force's critical role, he poured resources into its development. By the end of the war, the Soviets had created a formidable air force, equipped with exceptional fighters like the Lavochkin and attack aircraft like the Ilyushin. Legendary pilots like Pokrishkin and Kozadov emerged, laying the foundation for the Soviet Air Force's dominance over NATO aviation for decades to come. Time blurred during the rough journey. When 2nd Lieutenant Ilyushin, finally relieved and rescued by Malyshenko, regained consciousness, he was surrounded by the quiet and peace of a field hospital. "Am I alive? Where am I?" He tried to raise his arm, but a wave of pain shot through him, bringing tears to his eyes. "Damn, that hurts. Guess I'm still kicking." A nurse, recording his condition, turned around. "Oh my God, Lieutenant Ilyushin, he's awake. Elena, get Dr. Petrenko, quick." As the tense medical emergency subsided, Malyshenko, lost in thought on the lawn outside the tent, strode inside. "Look at you, Ilyushin. You scared the crap out of me. I thought I'd rescued a corpse." Ilyushin, relieved to be alive, replied from his hospital bed, "Hey, what's the date, Comrade Malyshenko?" "Where are we?" Malyshenko answered without hesitation, "July 1st. We're in the fortress area on the old Soviet-Polish border. Our 20th Tank Division is regrouping here." Ilyushin was stunned. "The fortress area on the old border? Does that mean we're retreating? Did the Germans really win?" Reluctantly, Malyshenko told him the truth. "Yeah, the Germans won the Battle of Lutsk Brody, but it's only temporary." Chapter 80 The Sunset, Part 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Originally, the fortress along the old Soviet-Polish border was meant to defend against a potential Polish invasion. It sounds strange now, but Soviet leadership at the time considered a Polish attack on the USSR a real possibility. They also wanted to regain territory lost from the old Tsarist Russian Empire. Making early military preparations was just sound strategy, but now, this border area, which became obsolete after the Soviets and Germans jointly invaded and partitioned Poland, has found a temporary purpose. With Rokossovsky's frontline battle group collapsing, the 9th Mechanized Corps is using it as a rest camp. After the brutal fighting from Lutsk to Brod, the 9th Mechanized Corps, once boasting the 20th and 35th Tank Divisions and the 131st Motorized Infantry Division, had been decimated. Forced marches and over a week of intense battles against the Germans cost them most of their tanks and more than half their troops. Compared to its former strength, the 9th Mechanized Corps was now just a group of battered survivors, with only a handful of barely functional tanks remaining. The mechanized part of their name was a joke. The tank and motorized infantry divisions were all operating at less than half strength, leaving the entire corps in ruins. The 9th Mechanized Corps had, for all intents and purposes, lost its ability to fight. Everyone knew that the Soviet Army's early defeats in Operation Barbarossa were inevitable, but Malyshenko felt powerless to change things on his own, sitting quietly on the lawn beside the concrete fortifications, staring at the setting sun. Malyshenko, who'd been in this strange world for 2 weeks, felt genuine worry and fear for the first time. I survived this battle, but what about next time? If things go as they did before, the Battle of Smolensk is just around the corner, and the Kiev encirclement is also moving forward as it happened. A small detail from another world can't stop the juggernaut from moving forward, and the butterfly effect doesn't work for everyone. Clenching his fists and feeling the warmth of the setting sun, Malyshenko, exhausted from the recent fighting, began thinking about his life before time travel and who he used to be. Although Lin Jie, born in a peaceful time, had often complained in his heart about being stuck in a dead-end job, actually finding himself on the brutal Soviet-German battlefield of World War II made him feel a longing for peace he'd never known before. Without this war, so many good people wouldn't have died, and Ayushkin wouldn't be lying in a hospital bed. I saved others in this battle, but will anyone save me in the next one? Will I end up trapped in a burning tank like those charred bodies? After I die, who will remember Malyshenko's name? What's worse than disappearing from my original world and being forgotten in this one? As the adrenaline from battle faded, replaced by gunpowder smoke and blood, Malyshenko felt alone and increasingly fearful. All that was left was pessimism and uncertainty about a life that could end at any moment. Seeing the young man's lonely figure, Commissar Petrov sighed, steeled himself, took off his hat, and stepped forward. Homesick again, kid? Malyshenko, startled by the sudden voice and not expecting Petrov to appear, stammered a reply. Comrade Commissar, you're here. Sorry, I was lost in thought. Caught off guard, Malyshenko jumped to his feet to salute. But Petrov, instead of acting like the usual uptight political officer, just patted him lightly on the shoulder, looking more like a friendly neighbor. When we're alone, call me Uncle Peter, Malyshenko. I prefer that to Comrade Commissar. What do you say? Malyshenko, stunned by the unexpected offer, just nodded. Okay, then, little Malyshenko, I'm your Uncle Peter now. So, your uncle is curious about what you were thinking about while you were sitting here staring at the sun. Let me guess, you're homesick, right? Knowing that he was carrying the weight of being from another time, Malyshenko kept quiet. Seeing him sitting silently on the lawn, Petrov continued. If you don't say anything, I'll take that as a yes. His voice, like the setting sun, seemed to stretch back to his own youth. Comparing himself to Malyshenko, the commissar couldn't help but sigh. He went on speaking. It seems like a lifetime ago, Malyshenko. Back then, just like you, I was shouting slogans of loyalty, fighting for the motherland and the Soviet Union, battling the White Army and the bourgeoisie. He glanced at Malyshenko's short, dark hair and then touched his own balding head, chuckling. Of course, unlike now, back then I had a full head of hair that made the ladies swoon.